back to the Absolutely Epic Early Week podcast, week number 14. We're at the quarter pole, down the stretch. This is where I usually say usual suspects, but it's not the usual suspect. Well, one usual suspect is here. It's one Grant Niefer. Grant, how's week 14 looking to you?
I mean, week 14 looks super interesting. Week 13 treated me all right. I had near 100% Carlos Hyde, and luckily most of my play was over on fantasy draft. And because I had Carlos Hyde, I was able to get Keenan Allen. So it looked like I was absolutely dead in the water until that absolute explosion on Sunday Night Football. So things didn't turn out too bad for me this week. I made a bit of money, which is way better than I thought it would happen.
You were saying that some people on the Twitter machine, they gave you the business as far as recommending Carlos Hyde. You recommended him, of course, on Grinders Live Sunday morning. And you pointed out, and this is a good point, because almost always, like if I recommend somebody like a hard sales pitch and they don't do well, there's a very good chance I'm losing money too. So that makes you feel better if you followed along. Like Grant, you had some people hit you up, but like it also hurt you. I guess that makes it feel better, I suppose.
Yeah, it definitely makes it feel better. But I mean, the main thing was, like, I already told everyone not to do it on DraftKings, but fantasy, or at least in cash on DraftKings. Fantasy draft, though, like, it just the way it made my builds happen. Like, I fit in Kelsey, I fit in Keenan Allen. Things happened to work out for me. It wasn't not the smartest play, but obviously when you first carry ends in a fumble, the game's entirely different after that. But you know what? I absolutely take it was bad advice. I stand by that entirely. I did not give out the best advice on Carlos Hyde, but you know what? Weird things happened that week anyways, so.
Process versus results. You're not going to use that to fall back, or no? You're just going to say
no. When I make a bad decision, I absolutely own it, and this was a very bad decision.
This is the point in the podcast where I normally say, "Hey, here's Bobby Fye." Unfortunately, Bobby Fye is not able to be with us. We tried to connect. He's having some internet issues, possibly due to the fires out there in California that's going to be hindering his internet to some degree. So we're going to bring on – now, this is without question, like this is the first person we didn't say, hey, let's see if Will's available. Hey, let's see if Big T's available. Hey, I wonder if Crazy Gabe is around. We said right away, let's call Mangone. This is the guy we want, Travis Mangone, number 1 draft pick. And thankfully, you were available to jump on the podcast.
Yeah, man, I was killing the streets of Fortnite, and I decided to hop on. I had the squad all available, and I said I got to go, man. The podcast is calling me, so I had to happy to hop in. Regarding Carlos Hyde, one man's trash is another man's treasure. No Carlos Hyde for me. I did not like him, so I was very happy that people were rostering Carlos Hyde. I actually didn't even want to play Carlos Hyde, even Spencer Ware news. I was trying to find my way off. So looking back, man, I wish Kareem Hunt didn't do what he did because everyone would have played Carlos Hyde except me. But
that's the reason why you wish he didn't do what he did.
Well, of course.
Yeah, that's a terrible reason.
Well, I wish he didn't do it because that's a terrible thing to do. But, I just it wasn't even a good week for me. It doesn't even matter. I did not come through with a W. Didn't need a W on Sunday, but 8-1 in NBA tonight, so that was good. Have to pay tribute to Bobby throughout the show and do things that Bobby would say. So I cashed with Gary Harris getting injured. So how's that sound?
Well, it sounds like the purple person listening to this podcast on Tuesday is going to be like, what are you talking about? Who is a Gary Harris? This is the football podcast thing going. I know it's an homage or a homage, however you want to pronounce it, but let's try to stay on task here.
All right, I'll do my best, but I'm going to pay tribute to Bobby. We're going to make the team throughout the show, too, the Bobby team, and throw it in one of the tournaments. And if it chips the Millie Maker, we'll have to buy Bobby internet for sure because he's having some internet problems tonight. So happy to step in, though, for him and do my best.
By the way, Grant, you think Mangone totally bought that he was the first person we thought of to jump on the podcast?
No, I don't think he did, but he was ahead of Crazy Gaby. I will not.
On the Family Feud board, like 3 out of 100 said Mangone. It was.
Listen, if you called Crazy Gaby before me, I don't think we'd talk again. That's all I gotta say.
We hit the over on Crazy Gaby mentions, by the way. If you guys are listening at home, 3.5 was the over.
There's 5 people listening saying, who is Crazy Gaby?
You were correct. People are going to start Googling. The first guy, like, who's Gary Harris? Second guy, who was Crazy Gaby? We're going to talk about this is obviously a First Look podcast. We record this on Monday night. We're looking ahead as far as next week. Lots of things are going to change. We haven't done a full dive as far as analysis. I mean, hell, we got Mangone off the joystick there. He was playing some Fortnite. So who who knows how much he's dug in as far as the slate. Oh, can I Grant, before we get started, I know your whole thing is Grant's rant. Can I go on just a little bitty rant? Are you okay with that? Can I steal your stick?
Yeah, I'm fine. Nothing weird happened to me other than before the show I watched the Victoria's Secret fashion show every episode from 2011 to 2018.
Every episode. It's like a 3-hour production.
You binge watch Victoria's Secret?
It's an hour-long
That's the
thing.
exact definition of something weird happening. You can't say nothing weird happening. I just watched 21 hours of Victoria's Secret in the last 8 years.
I mean, they're hour-long episodes, and they're all up on YouTube, and they're very tastefully done. The music is incredible. That's not the only reason I watch it, but the music shows are fantastic on it.
Who was your favorite musician on the Victoria's Secret fashion show?
Oh, it was probably Kanye back in 2012.
Okay, you actually got an answer. Okay.
Yeah, although Taylor Swift in 2013 was pretty good with Fall Out Boy.
I did actually see that one. It actually was a good time, Grant.
What just happened? It's week 13. It's the quarter poll. Again, we're starting to get a little saucy before the show even starts. I promise we're going to talk about the Evans.
We got most of our nonsense out before the show. There was 45 minutes of nonsense. We were supposed to start this over a half hour ago.
Yeah, we got a lot of it out of our system. One thing I said, I was tilting before the show, and I was tilting because prepare yourselves, guys. I know we're not supposed to talk about that in these parts. My season-long league? So my season-long league...
Skip. Nope.
All right. Well, I mean, nobody wants to hear anybody's bad beats story.
Especially the playoff bad beats, Dean. Like, that's even worse.
But but this isn't the playoff bad beat. They get half the regular season pot, half the entire pot goes to the total points your team scores, right? I have Kareem Hunt. I have Melvin Gordon. I have James Conner. I have Breida. I lost by the entire season, 13 weeks of accumulating stats. The very last play for Adams tonight, a 3-yard carry. I lost by 0.2 fantasy points of 13I weeks of fantasy stats accumulated. I fully tilted. That's it. We've hit the quota as far as season.
All right. So regular DFS news. I was 0.7 points would have got me an extra $4,000 on the last drive by the Steelers last week, and then I had Connor and Brown. Connor gets injured, and then they throw a touchdown to his backup. And if it would have been Connor, that would have been an extra with a touchdown, it would have been $4,000 to $5,000.
Games to you, man. That's like 7 different Postmates or something like that. $4,000, that's nothing.
I mean, that's an entire year of Post Malone Postmates.
This is about pride. I'm playing it. I have my one, whatever. I'm sorry. I apologize to the listeners. I apologize to you guys. I'll never talk about season-long fantasy again. Nobody cares. Everybody's got their story, and you're just going to nod and smile and say, I hope the story ends. All right, so on to week 14, boys. Of course, we talk about the main slate. The main slate now, it has 13 games or 16 games entirely.
Do not list the games that aren't on there. Let's just get into this.
Well, it's like 3 games. I was just going to say, in case you're waiting for us to talk about like Jacksonville or Tennessee, because I'm sure people want some hot takes as far as Hyde or Forte. They're not playing. They're playing Thursday night. That's a typical Thursday night snoozer. Oh, boy. The Rams and Chicago play on Sunday night. We're not talking about them. And Monday night's Minnesota, Seattle. We're not talking about that either. We're talking about the main slate. Grant, you open it up as far as the slate. And there's some injuries we'll talk about, too, as far as some potential cheapies as the week progresses. But what's the first thing you see? What's your overview as far as the slate?
I mean, we have potential Kansas City last week scenario with Pittsburgh going against Oakland this week, a very similar type scenario, not quite on the same pace. We have Tampa Bay versus New Orleans, which everyone thinks of Tampa Bay as just the worst defense in the league. It's not quite the point this year. And so the over-under on that game is interesting because Saints can still put up that many points on anyone. We got the Chargers with Melvin Gordon potentially not being in, going up against Cincinnati. It's a terrible defense. So we could potentially have some good spots there. We have Carolina, Cam, someone we always end up going with, but he's going up against a tough defense this week, and he didn't really perform that well last week, going up against a much, much worse defense. Atlanta versus Green Bay, how McCarthy is not being there is going to affect Green Bay in this scenario. We have Indy versus Houston, which is a great rivalry, or it's a potential huge playoff matchup here. So it actually means something, which is nice at this point in the season here. And then we have Baltimore and Kansas City, which obviously Casey underpriced, going up against one of the best defenses in the league, and Lamar Jackson going up against a high-scoring offense is interesting. So those are the places that really stand out to me, and it's going to be.
You mentioned like a bullet point in every game. How am I supposed to like break that down? You said
well, you just that was the first look what stood out to me. So like that's
the first thing that stood out to you was nine things.
Yeah. No, some people are able to not just compartmentalize one thing; they're able to look at everything as a whole and be able to dissect the slate in that way. Sorry you don't have all my beautiful powers, my DFS powers.
Mangone, let's get a starting point. Where is your starting point? And that's probably a better way to frame this. What's the first thing? The first thing, Mangone, not 12 things, not the Family Feud board in its entirety. What's the first thing that jumped out to you as far as this slate?
Yeah, so the first thing that jumped out to me, I pulled it up Sunday, and I was just looking, hey, like, what do we have this week coming up? Like, what pops off the page? And the first thing that popped off was, Saints-Bucks. Everyone's going to be loading up on that game. Chris Godwin, Adam Humphries, those two guys are going to be, chalky options. It'll be Chris Godwin season again. I'm sure I'll have a lot of him. The site's underpriced him. So really like Chris Godwin, I think he is someone that I'm going to get a ton of exposure to on this slate. Another thing that really popped out to me, and again, it's a tough matchup, but defenses don't matter, right? I don't know if I'm the right podcast that talks about that, but the Chiefs, right? They're getting the Ravens, who are really tough defense, but the Chiefs are one of the best teams in the league offensively. One of the things to note too is DraftKings. They have that algorithm that kind of prices guys down against tough defenses. So I'm going to get one of the best offenses in the league at a price discount. Like Travis Kelce is $6,700 on DraftKings. Ty Fluke Hill, whatever you want to call him, he is $8,000. He's really cheap, right? We had to pay I think it was 9.1K we paid last week for him. And you get Pat Mahomes. Sure, he's still the most expensive quarterback on the slate, but he's only $7K. It is expensive, but, Pat Mahomes is getting really pricey. And at this point in the season, I don't know if you know this stat, but Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers have the same amount of touchdowns combined as Pat Mahomes. So that Chiefs offense is really good. So I do think that they're going to be an offense that's just underpriced, even though it's a tough defense.
Man, go bring the goods. That was a good stat, Grant. I don't think we're going to top that. That was pretty impressive.
I don't like pretty much me and Bobby always bring stats off the top of our heads because we can remember it. He's actually looking into stats and being prepared and stuff. I don't know how I feel about this. I don't like this replacement.
Well, let's talk about that Kansas City situation first because, like, Baltimore, who wants to pick on Baltimore, but like you said, man, Mahomes is getting a slight discount as of last week, 7.6K on DK. Now he's down to 7K. He's still the most expensive quarterback, Mangone. I feel like we're going to have some cheapies opening up as far as injuries and guys not being priced up, so you probably can get there. And, if you just play Mahomes and Kelce like every single week, you're doing just fine. Like, why would you stop now, right? And by the way, you don't get any like DK points for air yards, but Hill had it must have been at least 150, maybe 200. He missed. He was so just missed having a monster day. Of course, he had like 113-yard catch that deflected off like somebody's head or something like that. It wasn't even intended for him. But, that's another podcast in its entirety, I suppose, Mangone, as far as the air yards. But are we going back? Are we afraid of Baltimore? Or we have to fire some Hill and some Mahomes in tournaments if nothing else?
Yeah, it's definitely more of a tournament thing, not really the cash game route to go. I kind of tried to build a cash team, and I was kind of having some issues with it. It wasn't the easiest to pull off. Looking at like the running back position, like that's where I typically try to build my cash game first. And like I saw Alvin Kamara against Tampa Bay, and of course I get really excited about that. Looking at the top, right, like sure. McCaffrey against Cleveland, that's fine, but he's starting to get pricey. Barkley against Washington, not really the greatest matchup with that shoulder injury. Who knows? We got Melvin Gordon questionable, James Conner, Aaron Jones gets like the most amazing matchup against the Falcons, but everyone's scared about Aaron Jones, right? Because of what happened with.
What does Joe Philbin think of Aaron Jones? You're the Packers guy. What's the insight here?
Yeah, so I did read something interesting. Like Joe Philbin, when he was in Miami, he actually never called plays, so he's now calling plays. So that's pretty interesting to hear that he's like doing it. Like, is this the first time he's calling plays? Feels like Aaron Rodgers is just going to really be doing the play calling, though. But I do think Aaron Jones against Atlanta, I'm going to go back to the well. But I think people could be scared to do that, and I kind of think that's a mistake to be scared to. So I like him. The one guy I wanted to talk about is Austin Eckler, and we kind of talked about it before we get on here. And, I mean, Eckler at 6,200, it's a great price, and he plays against the Bengals. And here's a fun trivia for you guys, and I'm not going to count Sunday. Yeah, I'm not going to count Sunday's game because I don't have the exact stat on that. But in the last 3 games, excluding the Sunday game, how many yards do you think the Bengals had given up on the ground?
480.
Last 3?
Yeah, sorry, yards per game. How many have they given up? Not total yards, Grant. Yards
160.
All right, what about you, Dean?
I like how he stayed consistent. Nice job there, Mr. Accountant. You could have said 150, but yeah, good job. Right, that's divided by 3, right? I'm going to take the over. I'm going to take the over on that. I'm going to win the showcase.
Yeah, you do win the showcase. It was 198. Now, here's the next question. Who was the next closest? Actually, it doesn't matter who's the next closest. What was the next closest yards per game on the ground?
It's going to be the Rams with 158.
Okay, what about you, Dean?
Did he pull that stat? He said that with confidence, but I'm going to take the under on 158.
Okay, it was the Rams at 170. And, I mean, that's 28 yards difference. Like, that's an insane amount. Like, the Bengals defense, we know they're bad, but, like, they are awful on the ground. I think my point I'm trying to say is I don't know if Eckler's going to be the guy. I don't know if Jackson's going to steal some work. But ultimately, I think the Chargers are a rush game we're going to want to invest in tournaments, cash games. Like, they're definitely going to be an offense that we want to invest in from a rushing perspective.
Yeah, so here's the question. They're 2 touchdown favorites against the terrible Bengals. Gordon, we don't know if he's going to play or not. I think we're having this conversation under the assumption that Gordon's not going to play and Eckler's the next man up. We saw Jackson thrive last week in a small role. Does Jackson get more of a role? Do they kind of baby Eckler to some degree? How cautious are they, Grant?
I mean, the thing with this offense is they've used Eckler mostly as a change of pace back. We have a 2-game sample size without Gordon this season, one against Tennessee, which Eckler did not perform that well, and one this last week, which, again, Eckler did not perform that well. The Chargers really like to mix it up, and for a while there, I thought Anthony Lynn was just a big old dummy, and I have a whole lot of Chargers sources that watch way too many Chargers games, and they are pissed off about the use of Eckler and wondering if that's going to change. And then, of course, now when he actually got a role, it's not performed well. So I think he's more of a change of pace back. And, I mean, Jackson, the thing is, he's not really a guy that's going to bang it up the middle over and over again. He seems like a tiny guy just from what I saw this last night. Obviously, I haven't looked into it a terrible amount, but I don't know if Eckler's as much of a lock or as much of a great play as everyone seems to think it is. We have Phillip Lindsay at 100 more going up against the San Francisco defense when they're, 5.5-point favorites, which I think that line's pretty darn low. I think it's going to move to 7.5 within the next few days in all likelihood here. They're not great versus the run, but they're not bad. But Lindsey's a guy that whenever he's in the game can obviously just break things off. And also we have Joe Mixon in a game where he could be heavily involved in the pass games, and David Johnson going up against the Detroit team that they have been playing better than people expected lately, but even still – the Cardinals are only a 2.5-point underdog here. So we have 3 guys within a $300 range of each other that all are getting a similar workload. And in my experience, like Lindsey, Mixon, and David Johnson are all better backs than Eckler.
Okay, a couple things. Like, how much do you want of that Cincinnati offense? They just lost A.J. Green. Driscoll looks like brutal. What's the touchdown equity for Mixon?
I mean, the touchdown equity is probably pretty significant since they're not going to rely on Driscoll that much. They were just going up again. Like, everyone's going to look at this last week when Mixon didn't do as well as everyone would have hoped, and Driscoll didn't do that well. But they were going up against one of the toughest defenses in the league, which the Chargers are a tough defense, and they have been underperforming for the majority of the year. But now that they have Bosa back, they're a very different defense. But we saw this defense be one of the worst in the league versus the run last year because they obviously have a great pass rush and some great cornerbacks. They're looking like the great pass defense they are again. So I'm guessing that Cincinnati is more likely to rely on the run even in a bigger blowout game. Mixon still had 12 rushes for 84 yards, I believe, 82 yards last week. So he could potentially still be heavily involved here. I know Giovanni Bernard is stealing a lot of the touches in this game and a lot of the snaps, considering he's the third down back, but they still involve Mixon a decent amount every single week. I don't want a huge amount, but like I said, Phillip Lindsay and David Johnson are 100 more expensive and 100 cheaper.
I'm seeing a 48 total as far as the Chargers. They're 14-point favorites. That's basically saying, 31-17? That's more or less what they have it as far as the team totals. How about that, Grant? I did that math in my head. Look at it, because we don't have the team totals up just yet. There's no page. That's how early we do this podcast. Team totals not even available. At least I don't know where to find them. I'm not that smart on the internet, apparently. So what was your thing I want to talk about? Oh, yeah, Lindsey. This is interesting. The issue with Lindsey, he's been great. He's been efficient. He's not getting as many snaps as I want Mangone. But, okay, so they have 59 snaps last week, right? 59. That's the Broncos. How many times was Lindsey on the field?
I'll say he was on the field for 33 of them.
Yeah, I was framing it, but 25. He was on the field. Of course, they were kind of blowing him out too.
And 80% of the snaps he actually had a carry, 19 carries and 1 catch, I believe.
Do you want to hear something funny that Vance Joseph?
I just tweeted it out like an hour ago. You just steal my stat? You just pull the crane? You stole my information?
No, someone else tweeted out about 4 hours ago. They also mentioned that Philip Lindsay right now is averaging more yards per carry than anyone in NFL history over the course of the season besides Jamal Charles and Emmanuel Sanders.
So people think I'm a fraud with my tweet. I didn't see somebody else. I was the first one to see it.
No, not a fraud, just a plagiarist.
All right. Well, speaking of frauds, Vance Joseph said how many touches he gets is predicted on the game. Hopefully we can get him more. That's what the coach said. Hopefully we can find a way to get him more. You're the one who controls it, Vance. Make it happen.
Well, he controls it, but they're also heavily ahead for most of the game going up against a very bad defense. So it was fine throwing in other guys during that game. This weekend, it's probably going to be not quite as much of a similar scenario, although San Fran is really bad. They're looking to control the pace of the game and not give San Fran not give San Fran good field during the game, field position during the game. So I could potentially see them actually running the ball quite a bit more during this game, even though San Fran's not the worst run defense in the world, and they've actually been 24th in DVOA versus the pass. So Philip Lindsay could be involved for a heavy workload this weekend, and not like he needs a huge workload in order to get 30 points, apparently.
Yeah, that's fair, Grant. I think, the other funny thing he says, we have playmakers, right? We have Emmanuel Sanders. We have Cortland Sutton. We have Royce Freeman. Like, wait, back the train up. Royce Freeman, he's not your playmaker. Just get Philip Lindsay the ball. But
I mean, it's his teammate. I mean, it's his player. He's not going to tell him he's not like a playmaker to his face.
Oh, I mean, he wasn't actually physically there, but yeah.
Coaches, he's like, yeah, Freeman's kind of terrible.
No, I get what you're saying, but that was just a funny thing I heard Vance Joseph say on Lindsay. I mean, Lindsay's been incredible. I kind of regret going Aaron Jones over Lindsay because I kept saying throughout the week, I was like, man, like Aaron Jones and Philip Lindsay and the Aaron Jones and Packers, like and Philip Lindsay and the Broncos D, they're the same thing, but you get that for like $1,500 cheaper. Like, what am I doing? Basically, that's what I was saying all week, and I went with Aaron Jones like a donkey instead.
Both generational talents too. If you go on the Twitter machine, you can figure that out as well too. But Spencer Ware was all the rage last week because he was super, super cheap, right? He wasn't special. He was fine, I suppose. What he put like 12 DK points or so he found his way into the box as far as carries, as far as touches, as far as being on the field. 71 snaps, Grant, for the Chiefs entirely. He was on the field for 49 of those. Damian Williams on there for 19. Is somebody dealing a deck of cards? What is that?
Oh, man, trying to be like Bobby.
Yeah, just had to do a little Bobby tribute. You guys you can't forget the bag in the back.
You gotta time that, right? With mid-sentence stuff. Like this, that's what Bobby.
That was the point of it. Mid-sentence. What am I gonna do? Wait for the pause?
That's fair. Yeah, fair point. Grant, Spencer Ware, go.
So it's an interesting scenario. It looks like they're signing Charcandrick West, who obviously knows pretty much the entire playbook from when he
time is a flat circle.
Yeah. Also, they're working out C.J. Anderson, so I don't think Andy Reid has a huge desire to actually give Spencer Ware that much of a workload. He's going to look to kind of even things out and use multiple backs here. And obviously, Charcandrick West, I believe he was the third down back when Kareem Hunt was the starting back last year. I could be wrong there, but he's a guy that knows the offense. And C.J. Anderson, who knows? He was great at certain points and terrible at certain points, and obviously got cut by the Carolina Panthers. The price tag isn't bad at 5.2. The problem is the matchup going against Baltimore here. We're so heavy on Ware this last weekend, not only because of the price, but also because of how the matchup would look. And they assumed that Kansas City would be absolutely blowing them out of the water there, and obviously that was not the case, which happens every single time that home dog is 14-point or is a 14-point underdog. I am still fine with the price. It's not great. It's not terrible. The problem is, again, a guy that is $100 cheaper. I know I don't want to buy into Lamar Miller and his 97-yard run. That's not going to happen again. But he is going up against the Colts defense that is the worst in the league by far at defending opposing running backs catching the ball. Lamar Miller only has 26 targets on the season, but he's going to get a decent amount more, and I could easily see Texans trying to slow down the game pace a little bit and not trying to get Andrew Luck the ball. So Lamar Miller, who's had, 6 great games out of his last 8, over 20 points, I believe, he could be a better player than Spencer Ware, and people are still hesitant to pay for Lamar Miller, even going up against NDD that I believe is giving up the 26th most, it's 26th in the league at giving up fantasy points to opposing running backs.
Do you guys know, I don't really follow, I don't watch, First Take and the things like that, so we're outside of that, the clips here and there, I'll get on the Twitter machine or something like that. Mango, did you know Houston has won 9 games in a row? I had no idea.
Yes, I do know that because they talk about it all the time. I watched that. I think I watched the Houston Island game, whichever one that was when they won 8 in a row.
Oh God.
Yeah, it's definitely a thing, and it's pretty annoying. And JJ Watt, he always has to be on the screen to tell you about it. JJ always gets his screen time, so they're all about
That's a likable guy, though. Why are you taking shots at JJ Watt?
Yeah. I mean, of course, we're watching the Watt brothers. We had to talk about JJ more during the Sunday night game, so I don't know. I always try to think about it.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about Dom DiMaggio or Joe DiMaggio? I know that's a really dated reference, but that's the first one that popped in my head. How about Mike Maddox or Greg Maddox? Greg, let's talk about Greg. He's the Cy Young winner.
Yeah, speaking of, my ESPN is on and JJ Watt just showed up on my TV. That is so ironic.
I should have stayed on point and named brothers that play football, not because this is a football podcast. Grant, do you have famous brothers that play football?
Matt Hasselbeck and Tim Hasselbeck, obviously.
Well, they were both terrible. Well, they're both pedestrian.
Oh, Matt Hasselbeck almost won MVP the year that Sean Alexander. The only reason he didn't is because Sean Alexander had 30 touchdowns.
He was the definition of quarterback manager, right? Whatever the term they put on.
Really, the highest scoring offense in the entire NFL?
Yeah, I don't know. Whatever. Sean Alexander was fine. Quarterbacks don't matter. None of it matters, I don't think. But yeah.
Speaking of quarterbacks not mattering, we kind of only touched on Mahomes. Do you guys have any quarterback takes to spit out there? Because I don't really know what I'm doing at quarterback exactly.
I'll tell you one. This is not the first guy I'm going to play, but it's just a funny conversation. I thought if you believe quarterbacks don't matter, there's a quarterback that's starting next week at 4K. 4K
gosh.
on DK.
Oh, is it Tom Savage? Is Tom Savage starting?
Oh no.
No, I mean, okay, so what's his name? Colt McCoy broke his leg tonight.
Oh, gosh.
He's 4K.
Oh, gosh.
I know you're not going to like it. So nobody's going to like it. I'm just saying, he's 4K. You can get 4X and get 16 points if you believe that that's a thing.
By the way, speaking of Sanchez, I'm not doing it, but someone said on Twitter, I thought it was great. This is perfect for the nonsense type part of the show. The butt fumble is what he's famous for, right? But the hot dog eating on the sideline, I mean, that's legendary. We don't give that any credit. No one's eating hot dogs during.
And we're not talking about him making it to 3 AFC Championship games in a row in his career.
The best part is modern day Tim Hasselbeck. He was his defense that got him there. It wasn't his throwing.
Dude, so the guys Mark Sanchez beat, I saw it on Twitter. It's like Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, Phillip Rivers. It's literally just a really good quarterback.
Did you know that he has more wins against the Patriots than the entire Houston Texans franchise, Phillip Rivers, and Andrew Luck combined?
Where does that fact come from? How do you have that on?
That's got to be a chop fact.
I'm not going to lie. I have not been drinking much since I've been in Denver, and my memory has gotten incredible.
Have you been hitting up the edibles there? What's going on?
No, that would ruin my memory. Oh, gosh. Yeah.
I don't know how that works.
Really?
So, yeah, I just thought it. Oh, yeah, okay. Do you suggest the gummy worms? Do you have a hot take, or I don't know?
I mean, if you got epilepsy or chronic pain management, maybe, but that's a time and place, another time and place.
Fair enough. Yeah, so Mark Sanchez is there for 4K. I don't know how much salary he'll need. I just thought it's the cheapest quarterback we've seen the entire season, unless I missed something. I don't think we've had a quarterback.
So it's also interesting, we'll get to running backs in a second, the fact that they are all priced up at Todd Gurley status. Mark Sanchez, you know what? I'm not going to lie. He's actually in play at 4K. They have a 22 implied total at the moment, even knowing that Colt McCoy has broken his leg. I don't think the line has actually dropped at all, meaning that Colt McCoy is not that much of an upgrade over Sanchez, which Colt McCoy was not that much of a downgrade from Alex Smith in terms of Vegas eyes, which is something to be very cognizant.
You said 22? That's 5 goals, 4 safeties?
22. Yeah, 22 is the implied total going up against the Giants here, who also play at one of the faster paces in the game, who may or may not be relying that much on Saquon. But Chris Thompson is still probably going to be healthy in this next game. He's going to have a full week of practice with the starting unit this week, both Chris Thompson and Mark Sanchez. Chris Thompson has the ability to go off for 80 yards receiving in this game. Just based off the dump-offs and the planned screens they're going to have with him. I think that Mark Sanchez is in play at 4K, and the interesting thing with Mahomes is we have 3 matchups with him versus some of the best defense in the league. It's Jacksonville once and Denver twice. Against Denver, he put up, I think, 4 touchdowns in one of the matchups and 1 touchdown in the other. Against Jacksonville, he put up 0 touchdowns. He played Pittsburgh and the Chargers early on this season, but that was a completely different scenario where he combined for 10 touchdowns. So it is like there is some merit to thinking that he still can go off for 4 touchdowns and for 350 yards here going up against this Baltimore defense. They still have a 30 implied total. They're still 7-point favorites. It's in Arrowhead, which bodes greatly for him. And the place where the Ravens are best at covering for the opposing pass offenses is against the running back, which is going to be less of a factor now without Kareem Hunt in there. So Mahomes at $7K, only $200 more expensive than Roethlisberger, $400 more expensive than Breeze, where people are probably going to end up going there, even though teams have been attacking Tampa Bay on the ground heavily over the last few games since the offensive or the defensive coordinator was fired. Tampa Bay has actually been a pretty decent defense, and they've actually been very good at home over the last, 6-8 matchups with only allowing over 23 points once. So, I think Mahomes is one of the best GPP plays on the slate at 7K because I think that people are automatically going to go down to Breeze or go down to Roethlisberger versus a terrible Oakland defense.
What about on the other side, Lamar Jackson presumably in catch-up mode, 5.7K on DK?
I mean, do we really want to do that? I get they could potentially go for 100 rushing yards. I have to look at and see how other quarterbacks who had rushing abilities actually did against him. So, Mangone, go ahead and talk on that while I look things up.
Yeah, so, I was just going to say, we talked about the best quarterback on the slate and the worst. Let's talk about the middle for a little bit here. Way too much Mark Sanchez conversation for one podcast. But
you brought up hot dogs.
Yeah, that is probably my fault. But I was trying to derail the show, except you brought it back on with some Mark Sanchez analysis. But anyways, let's get back on track. Ben Roethlisberger on the road against Oakland. Man, I know Oakland's bad, but Big Ben has been annoying the roster. But I don't know. I don't think I'm going to touch him. I like Drew Brees a little better. I don't know. Big Ben is going to be a good tournament play, though. He's just been really frustrating. The guys I really like, though, at I guess it's mid-K-ish range. They're at 6K, right? Aaron Rodgers against Atlanta. We know how that Atlanta defense is not as great. Sure, they got Deion Jones back, but I do think Aaron Rodgers, rejuvenated with no Mike McCarthy, I think he's going to go all out and have a big game. Really like him as a tournament option. Jameis Winston, he's still in that, decent price range. 6.2K, I wish it was cheaper, but this is in the big total. They'll likely be trailing all game long. I think he's a really interesting option. I know Andrew Luck, he kind of fell apart against the Jaguars, but it's on the road against Houston. I think he's perfectly fine. He was throwing 3 touchdowns every game. He could easily do that again. You got Matt Ryan against Green Bay. Green Bay secondary is not that great, so he's obviously in play. One guy that's super interesting that no one wanted to touch with a 10-foot pole all season, but now you kind of see what he did the last 2 games, Jacksonville and Miami. He crushed them for 26.3 DK points and 33.74. But the reason why is the rushing upside. You're rostering a quarterback and a running back in one, basically. This is no joke. He had 9 rush attempts for 135 yards, which is ridiculous. He's not going to average 15 yards per carry. And then he had 13 rush attempts for 99 last time against Jacksonville. So, if you're getting 7, maybe 12 rush attempts a game, that's interesting at 5.5K. And they're home, right? We like the Bills when they're home, and they get the Jets. And, dude, the Jets are a terrible team. So.
What happened last time they played?
Okay, that's a 1-game sample, first of all.
No. I was saying that is a good argument for Josh Allen.
Oh.
That Matt Barkley
he
didn't play, actually, so that's great.
But they still put up that was one of the lowest totals I think I've ever seen in an NFL game, and the Buffalo still managed to beat the total by themselves. I think they put up 43 points. I could be mistaken there, but they still put up a whole lot of points in that offense. No, I was going to mention Josh Allen if we didn't mention him at all. He's a fantastic play. Although this New York defense has been good lately, a lot of that is skewed by the fact that Darnold is in the offense and they kind of leaned heavily on the run. Plus, they played multiple games in very high wind, which is not a normal occurrence for an NFL team over the course of the season outside of maybe Chicago, who they always have wind in their stadium. So Josh Allen could be one of the better plays on the slate strictly from the rush upside. Everyone gets such a big old what happens when you take a Viagra pill about him whenever he's on the slate because of his rushing upside. But, we've seen it in a few games. Josh Allen is pretty much the same rushing upside as Lamar Jackson because they've shown that they're not planning on just running run after run after run with him anymore. That was strictly a 1-week game plan where they didn't have time to prepare and they knew that they'd be able to catch the defense off guard.
Yeah, another thing about Allen too, like I heard a nugget on I think it was the Roto Underworld podcast I listened to, the game night one where they go through the games with Ben Gretsch. He talked about like breaking down Millie Maker lineups and how like a lot of rushing quarterbacks have been on it and cheap rushing quarterbacks. Like Josh Allen might fit this build. I just don't know what you want to run it back with. I know Zay Jones was on the Millie Maker winning team last week, but I don't know if I want to dive into that. Another cheap quarterback to like, again, we look at San Francisco and that matchup's not going to be as easy for Lindsey on the
ground. It all depends on the wide receivers, though. That's entirely dependent on if he has his wide receivers in.
Yeah, we could see a funnel for Case Keenum, though, right? For the San Francisco secondary. Emmanuel Sanders, he goes in the slot a ton. He's going to avoid Richard Sherman, who's been really good this season. I mean, we could really see a Case Keenum, Emmanuel Sanders stack take this thing down, one of these big GPPs. So funnel defense, they're on the road too. That's obviously good for them being on the road because they won't just be ahead maybe for most of the game. It might be more of a battle back and forth where they have to step on the gas pedal a little bit. And they're in the playoff hunt. If you look at that playoff race you like to talk about, Pete.
Zay Jones, his last 3 weeks have been an absolute turd burger. I don't know if you guys ever seen that hamburger that they made that you can they have like gold on the bun is made of gold or something like that. This is what we're talking about.
I don't know what you're into. I don't know what you're into.
I follow some weird Twitter accounts apparently. Zay Jones last week, 9 targets, 4 catches, 67 yards, 2 touchdowns. 2 weeks ago, let's skip the week in the middle. But then he had before that 11 targets, 8 catches, 93 yards, and a touchdown. Before that, nada, goose egg. Yeah, his floor is 0, but I guess he's interesting, I suppose. And you're kind of sort of chasing touchdowns too. And this game doesn't really shift if one's going to shoot out, but he's still just 4.2K in DK. And for sure, you get yourself a really, really cheap stack with the Josh to Zay combination platter. Anything else as far as quarterbacks that are worth mentioning? You kind of gave the rundown there, Mangone. Like you gave a little nugget in every one, but he really emphasized like who your favorite is outside of Allen and tournaments.
We never talked about Winston, did we?
No, I mentioned him.
Talk about Winston.
I mentioned him. I like him. He might be the guy I go to.
Winston is pretty much week in, week out, as long as we're assuming that he's not going to be benched. He's the guy I go with. The spread's only set at 8, which considering – how good New Orleans was for so long. And there could be an overreaction to what happened in Dallas last week, but Vegas has been setting the spread against some of the best teams in the league, like the Rams. It was at 3.5. Going up against the Eagles, I believe it was at 8.5. They set the next one up at 13 the next week. Going up against a great team like Dallas last week, they had it at 8.5. And this is a game over in Tampa Bay. Winston going against New Orleans, who has been one of the worst teams in the entire league on the outside. He's not going to have that much have that many passes to Brait, but Godwin and even Mike Evans, who Winston has a propensity to just throwing to on the outside over and over again, no matter what, even though it didn't happen last week. He'd still be a guy that does a whole lot, but against wide receiver 1 and wide receiver 2 in the passing offense, New Orleans is 31st and 32nd in DVOA, and against running backs, they're 32nd in DVOA. So there are ways that Winston can get it done, and with the bundling of targets in the offense, he could potentially be the game-winning game stack of the week, and he's probably the safest guy because of how much they actually pass the ball for 300 yards on this entire slate.
I got one more for you before we move on to running backs. Deshaun Watson, biggest game of the year has been against Indianapolis. He's in a dome. It's in December, which I love. Most carries he's had the entire season, probably from some scrambling, but he had 10 carries in that game as well, which was nice to see. Wait, hold on. Now I'm pulling up the game log. Nope, it was 6 carries for 41 yards. Nonetheless, I think he got in the box as well. His biggest fantasy output the entire season, I believe, was against Indy. And we're looking at, 4.5 point favorite, 49 total. So they're projected to score 28 points, give or take. Does that sound about right, Grant? You signed up on that, more or less?
Being a parent can be really challenging. Child and Family Resource Network focuses on connecting pregnant parents and those with kids under the age of 5 with free support services to help them on their parenting journey. Everyone deserves someone they can turn to for help with parenting. Visit childandfamilyresourcenetwork.org today.
Nope, 27?
26.75. And also something to keep in mind with Watson. I think he had one run called back from penalty this last week, and also there was a run where he was about to go for an extra 20 yards and got stumbled up, and a touchdown. He got stumbled up against some team where he ended up putting up a ton of points. So Watson still has a whole lot more rushing upside than we've actually seen so far this season. He's consistently been a 30 rushing yard floor pretty much the entire season, and this is a game where they're actually going to be, in all likelihood, coming from behind. Way too long for me to say that this entire time.
But they're favored. Why are they coming from behind?
I mean, everyone's they're favored because everyone's going to be buying in way too much to this loss that New England or that Indianapolis had this last week going up against Jacksonville, where they got shut out. But prior to this, Luck had 3 touchdowns in virtually every single game. We look at Watson's game log, and he had a 7-game streak where he threw 25 passes or less in every single one because they were winning most of those decisively. So we could see something similar to all the weeks before that, which was 44 passes, 42 passes, 40 passes, 32 passes, 34 passes. So if he gets volume, he's a completely different quarterback and has so much higher of an upside. He still hasn't had a single week this entire season with over 2 touchdowns, even though his offense is putting up decent numbers on a week-in, week-out basis. So Watson could be in for a very big game here. You are correct.
Stud running backs. Mangone, last 3 weeks, CMC. How many snaps do you think he took off? 3 weeks, all of them. How many snaps did he miss?
Yeah, he's missed like maybe 3.
Yeah, that's what
0.
I guess.
0, yeah.
Dude does not take a playoff. 0.
So I actually want to ask you guys a question.
2018 playing every down.
Yeah, it's crazy what he's doing. I did want to ask you guys because we did talk about running back a little bit, but I kind of skimmed past the top tier, and the reason why is I don't really know what I want to do here. Kamara at 8.1K, he's the kind of guy I gravitate to, right? Because I saw the high total, and I'm like, man, Kamara's going to eat up this, these like linebackers, these corners that are absolutely dead on this Bucs team. Then you look at like Mark Ingram. I don't want to play him, but 5.7K is cheap. I don't know. McCaffrey seems like a great spot, but I don't know. It's expensive on him, and Barkley against Washington's not that appealing. Elliott against the Eagles, like, are we that excited about that? But then again, Barkley crushed him. I just don't know how I want to spend my money on these top-tier running backs. So I'm going to open the floor to you guys. What are you guys thinking? Any hot takes?
So it's very interesting right now. You look at DVOA versus the top, 7 running backs. The worst DVO or the best DVOA, I guess, is 25th versus the run in Carolina here. These are the worst run defenses in the league, and they're facing the top 7 running backs in the league at this point right now in all likelihood. The one that really stands out to me the two that really stand out to me is first James Conner going up against Oakland. Everyone's going to be worried because of what happened with Spencer Ware last week, but this Oakland defense against the run is absolutely dreadful, and they're still going to be running the ball a lot. Roethlisberger is going to just destroy them, even though it's in Oakland and it's an 11-point spread. By the way, take Oakland in that. They're going to cover. But Pittsburgh is going to be running the ball quite a bit. And Connor, prior to 3 weeks ago, was averaging 26, 28 touches per game. And then Zeke, another guy that we know is going to be heavily involved in the offense every single time. He's very involved in the passing game. They set up screens for him every single week. We saw it against New Orleans. They're going up against a Tampa Bay defense, or not Tampa Bay, sorry, a Philly defense that has been targeted with the run multiple times over the last, 7 weeks. Even though most of their cornerbacks are out, teams still choose to run the ball on them fairly often, and they are near the, middle of the pack in terms of pass. They will try and take away the top option in Zeke, but it doesn't matter. They've shown that even going against a New Orleans team that is one of the best in the league versus the run, if I remember correctly. One of the best in the league versus the run and one of the worst versus the pass. They're still going to run the ball with Zeke. Zeke's still getting 25 carries and on all likelihood probably 6 to 8 targets here. Zeke is going to be the guy that often is probably going to get overlooked in this scenario here, and Zeke could crush. By the way, AP also had a 90-yard run against this Eagles offense tonight, or defense tonight.
Monday Night Football, man, it brings it out in the old man. Lamar Miller had a 97-yard touchdown, and AD, all-day Adrian Peterson, had a 90-yard touchdown, like you said. Just a note, Connor left last game. They're saying it was minor, but if he doesn't play, Jalen Samuels could be interesting at 3.7K, and that kind of leads us into Mangone's sport. They've already said Breida's out. And I know he's been in, he's been out, and he's sometimes he plays, sometimes he doesn't. I think he's out. I think he's out for good. At least for this week. That's all we care about. There's a person named Jeff Wilson Jr. who got a ton of garbage time last week. Caught 8 passes on 9 targets in a game against Seattle when they were getting walloped. I wanted to find out more information about him. Mangone, you mentioned the podcast. What's the name with the Podfather? What's the Roto Underworld, right? They have that playerprofiler.com. I'm plugging his name in, and they usually give you a comp, and they say, well, this guy is most like this guy. They don't even know who this guy is unless I'm typing it in wrong.
I mean, Grant's got to Grant. Do you know what his height is? Because you know the height of everyone apparently.
He is 5'8", 2 inches taller than Cohen.
All right, I'm gonna do a quick Google search on this. Let's see if you get this right.
Yeah, I was hoping that you were.
He's 6 foot, 194. So small dude, 23 years old. What's the player profile say? Does it say good things about him or what?
His name doesn't come up. Like they don't acknowledge his existence. He was on 54 of 78 snaps last week. He's 3.8K, and again, he catches the ball a ton. He was on the floor. I'm thinking of basketball. He was on the field. Yeah, plenty. And again, I don't know. He seems to be – it looks like he's the next man up as far as Jeff Wilson Jr. I know they have Juszczyk out there that's kind of lurking too, the fullback. But from what I can tell, as of Monday night at least, I think this is a potential chalk option, Grant. What say you?
So it's an interesting scenario because you have to remember – so earlier on the season, Morris is completely out of the offense. They're not dealing with Morris and may revisit it this week as a change of pace back.
He was a healthy scratch last week, I believe.
Yeah, it was a healthy scratch last week, and they've been doing weird things all season. Obviously, they had Morstead that they were really high on earlier on the season. They broke his arm, real sad injury, but he'll be back. I'm sure they have Burita, who's obviously the guy that came up when McKinnon went out along with Morris. But Jeff Wilson Jr., not Jeff Wilson, Jeff whatever his name is. Yeah, it is Jeff Wilson Jr. He's a guy that was heavily involved going up against Tampa Bay. Like, they had Burita healthy, and they were throwing him into the game because he's a great guy to go in there on third downs and is a fairly versatile back. I mean, apparently Mangone mentioned his height and weight, and he's a bit of a skinny guy. But he should be getting the brunt of this offense here. I think they had Mike Day. Was that the guy that was also taking a few of the snaps this week after what's-his-name went out?
Apparently Jeff Wilson Jr. got hurt too. I don't know, man. Like, this situation is a mess. I mean, like, I Googled it and it says Jeff Wilson got hurt during the game. I don't know.
I think he was playing in the very last series when San Francisco was calling timeouts with like 40 seconds to go, down 30. I don't know what they were doing, but I'm pretty sure he was on the field. But maybe he was hurt and playing through it. He was powering through. I don't know. Who are you suggesting? Another guy as far as another running back that you're saying that was playing? Matt Davies, halfback, got one carry or one touch, or he was in on one play for what it's worth.
I was literally just I was talking out of my tush there and just looking at the box score. And that was the first thing I saw. But I mean, regardless, you're getting a starting running back in a scenario where they're currently 5.5-point dogs, but it is going up against a tough Denver defense. I mean, I don't want to say there's another Carlos Hyde scenario because that was a great scenario last week. But yeah, potentially, like, it's like, we don't. Who knows? Alfred Morris might not be a healthy scratch. Hopefully, we get some. Like, this Monday, but I'm guessing, yeah, it's probably going to be chalk. It's worth fading, but I mean, I'll probably end up playing it. Gives him a big dummy.
Yeah, he got hurt, by the way, but he came back in. So he powered through it. So that was good to see. Dean, rank the top guys for me because, there's no like –
I'm the host. I don't have to give any analysis. I can throw it. Mangone, you're the quote-unquote – you guys can't see me, but I'm doing finger experts right now. Mangone, you rank the top guys.
I don't know which way I want to go. That's what I'm saying. Like, it's I really don't. Like, Aaron Jones' opinion, like, I kept building out a team, like – I really don't know which route I want to go with the top-tier running backs, which is, like, surprising. It sounds like I just want to jam in CMC because the dude just keeps printing every single week. Like, that's
he's on the field for every play. That's the most important thing, is to be on the field, right?
Yeah, so, like, that's the guy I think. It's either him. Like, I'd probably rank him CMC 1. I'd go Kamara 2, Zeke 3, and then Barkley 4, I guess, of the quote-unquote stud running backs. I'm not including Gordon and Connor because they're both questionable. And then from there, it's like the next tier, I guess it's Aaron Jones. Then it follows with Phillip Lindsay and Eckler are kind of in a debate going back and forth. And I like Grant's Chris Thompson call from earlier. And then, yeah, I guess we go down your buddy Jeff Wilson Jr.
Yeah, well, we just met like 8 minutes ago. I mean, I was watching, and I know I've heard his name throughout the season occasionally, but again, this is a Monday night take. Who knows what's going to happen for San Fran? But as of this moment, as of this podcast, he seems pretty interesting. We live in a world of a salary cap, and he is super, super cheap. Let's jump to receivers. Grant, give us the lay of the land up top.
No, man, the position I probably looked at the least because dealing with the internet, but obviously we got the guys at the top. We got Devontae Adams going up against a not good whatever it is, defense. We got Juju and AB going up against a not good Oakland defense. We have Michael Thomas going up against a not good Tampa Bay defense. We have OBJ, who's guaranteed 10 targets. We have Tyreek Hill going up against a good defense. We have Julio Jones that's underpriced again. We have Hopkins. We have Evans. Like, to me, and then obviously Keenan Allen, who absolutely just destroyed going up against one of the worst defenses in the league right now. Obviously, the worst against the run, according to what Mangone said. By the way, how good of a call was it me bringing up that the Rams were the second worst defense against the run? I'm just going to stroke my own ego there. But you have a lot of guys that are pretty much guaranteed targets and great matchups here. I expect a whole lot of people to be on Juju, AB, Michael Thomas, and Devontae Adams here, but I'm not sure that's the greatest idea in the world. You can go with these guys that essentially have the same ceiling, and we've seen guys in good matchups completely miss. We saw Tyreek Hill this last week. We saw a few Michael Thomas on Thursday Night Football. Like, it's no guarantee that these guys are going to hit, so I think you go with the guys that are least owned. Obviously, it's Monday. Who knows what that'll be? My favorite guys from the top of this list here are probably Keenan Allen, Mike Evans, and OBJ in all likelihood. Even though they're not the best raw point per dollar guys on the slate, when you incorporate ownership in them, they could end up being the best plays.
Mangone, your thoughts?
So I think this is where we fight and we each take a top tier receiver because I think there's a lot of good ones. And is this where you make the bet on it? I'll take my stand on Devontae Adams or Michael Thomas. I like those two guys as my 1 and 2 here in this range. Michael Thomas is just an absolute stud. Drew Brees looks for him all the time. He just doesn't care. Right? You kind of get a little worried that the Saints might get up a little too much and they just run the ball. That is something to obviously get a little worried about. But man, there's just so much touchdown upside with Michael Thomas. He catches every single pass thrown his way. That's how efficient he's been this season. Love Michael Thomas. And then Devontae Adams, one interesting stat on him. Did you know he's had the toughest cornerback matchups this entire season so far of any player. So look at what he's been doing too. With the toughest matchups, 23.3, 17.9, 29.6, 21.7, 16.0, 21.3, 38.2, 32. I can keep going, Dean. I mean, he has just absolutely been a stud all season. The lowest he's produced is 16.1. That's just insane. And he's had the toughest cornerback matchups. What is he going to do to this Atlanta team? And they're home too, right? That's obviously a safe thing you want because the Packers have been a little sketchy this year, losing to the Cardinals at home before. But, man, I think I'm going to side with either Devontae Adams or Mike Thomas as my guy. And as a Packer fan, I'll make Devontae Adams my favorite wide receiver play on the entire slate.
So here's the thing, Grant. I wanted to mention this before the show, but now that we're doing it live, we're doing it live. So, Grant, we have to make sure Mangone loses. This is the only opportunity we have the entire season to force Mangone to make a tweet. So we can't pull Carlos Hyde again.
Oh, by the way, guys, I should mention that I lost the tweet bet last week. We got a good one that we did Mad Lib style where Dean had to give me 3 words and I created it into a tweet. Turned out real weird, and I'm going to if I'm in a mental institution after this tweet, you'll know exactly why.
Are we going to share it with the people or just going to kind of appear on your Twitter timeline?
I mean, we'll do it at the end of the show, so guys we're going to share it at the end of in the pod anyways.
That's what they call a tease in the business, Grant.
Yeah, so
they call it a tease, but it's not the best time to tease when it's 10 minutes before the pod ends. We're basically at the end. That we should have teased it up top, but that was the whole. That's on me, I suppose. Yeah. I'm doing air quotes as the host.
Yeah. By the way, Mangone, in the last 4 weeks, I believe that Tampa Bay defense has averaged less than 20 points given up per game. On top, less than 20 points. At home this season, they've only allowed more than 27 points once. All season, only allowed more than 23 points, I think, twice. So, this Tampa Bay defense is a lot better than people give it credit for now.
Yeah, well, they fired their defensive coordinator, Grant, and ever since then, they've absolutely been lights out.
Yeah,
not about lights out, but really good.
I mean, again, this is going against New Orleans, but Tampa Bay still has the ability to put a lot of points on the board here. If you want Michael Thomas, I will absolutely let you have that.
I want Devontae Adams. That's what I'm going with. So I like Michael Thomas, but I want Adams. I just said that Devontae was my favorite.
Yes, we gotta let him pick first. He's a guest.
Yeah, and I said he was my favorite play on the entire state. I took a stand. I didn't take a stand on the NBA show with my final pick, and now I'm taking a stand, and you're getting mad at me. What do you guys want here?
I don't care.
We just want to complain either way. I don't. That's just how it works.
Yeah, we just want excuses.
Yeah, valid point.
Yeah, while we're here, Grant, who do you want to put your tweet behind? Because, again, you're in a losing streak right now, I believe. And, again, we have to make sure Mangone loses. But the problem is I think he chose wisely. I think Adams actually has the big night versus Atlanta. I'm with Mangone, unfortunately.
I mean, if you want to go smart, you'll go with Pittsburgh and go with Antonio Brown. I'm going with Keenan Allen. I know I'm following the just absolute monster week he put up this last week, but this offense is very different without Melvin Gordon in it. They'll concentrate more on Keenan Allen. Since Keenan Allen complained about his usage, I think he said 10 targets in virtually every single game. Keenan Allen is the best route runner in the entire game. I've been saying that for about 2 years now, and people are starting to see it after this great game he put up last night. The touchdown equity is entirely different. Yes, Eckler has a few touchdowns this season, but if Melvin Gordon ends up not playing, they've been a run-first team, and they will still be fairly run-heavy this week, but red zone usage, like Keenan Allen has 12 red zone targets on the season, which isn't nearly as much as he was on pace for last season. He went the first 6 weeks of the season, I believe, without a touchdown, or he might have had one touchdown there, but now it's starting to look like they're going to be targeting him heavily. They can't just focus on him in the red zone anymore with Mike Williams in this offense and the big wide receiver that he is. Travis Benjamin and Tyrell Williams are only deep bomb guys, so Keenan Allen's going to continue to get these short dump-offs on a week-in, week-out basis without Melvin Gordon in the lineup. So if Melvin Gordon is out again, Keenan Allen could be the top-scoring wide receiver on this entire slate again.
All right, I'm going to take one of the Pittsburgh guys. And again, I was watching that Kansas City game, and Hill kept getting behind the defense, and he just kept getting overthrown. He could have had a monster game. So I think either Juju or Brown, they're going to get behind that Oakland secondary. Juju probably more the burner, but let's go with the safer play. Let's go with Brown. I want to make sure Mangone loses here, so I'll take Antonio Brown.
It's not happening, boys. I'm winning this one.
Yeah, good luck with that. It's not going to work out too well. This offense is going to be different without Mike McCarthy at the helm. They're going up against the Atlanta team that will focus the receptions and targets on the running back here, still at 26% on the season of target share to opposing running backs. It's going to be the Aaron Jones show. And Rodgers is still going to do quite a bit, but Cobb's also back in the offense. Most of Adams' production has been without Cobb in the offense, if I remember correctly. And so with Cobb back in the offense, it's a different scenario.
Hey, I got 16.1 every single game this season. So that's what I'm starting with, and we'll see what I end with.
That's great. That's not enough to win it, this bet, considering 3 of the last 4 weeks we picked the top guy each and every week. I did not do well with Carlos Hyde, let me put it that way.
One of us picked CMC. I don't know who did I pick. I don't recall. But
I think you actually picked Todd Gurley instead, which is still pretty much the same bet.
Oh, all right. Either way, yeah. But there's a person named Trent Sherfield. You may hear this week. Looks like he's in line for some run. He's the receiver for the Cardinals. He is stone minimum on DK, and Christian Kirk is out. I think he's done for the year. AJ Green also done for the year too. So Trent Sherfield might be the wide receiver Q here in Arizona. Just throwing it out there. If you need a cheapie, he's somebody you might hear. Is there anybody else in the mid tier that's interesting? You may go on. We talk about the big boys up top, and we're almost done here. Feel free to talk about tight ends. We saw Ertz had a pretty big night on Monday night. Didn't get in the box, but plenty of usage for sure. I think he had his biggest night of the season against Dallas. We talked about Zeke. Zeke had his biggest night of the season, I believe, against Philly as well. So both those studs, primed for a nice rematch here. Mangone, some other dudes from the road. Let's fire some out there.
Yeah, so Godwin and Humphries, we talked about them a little bit. I think they're both really good options for cheap that you could look to. Emmanuel Sanders, I already talked about him in that slot, so he's a really good play. I would definitely be considering him as well. Let me see. There was a couple others I wanted to mention. Oh, Kenny Golladay, right? The amount of targets that he is seeing seems like a good call here. T.Y. Hilton's always better on the fast track in the dome, right? We talked about that game in December. It makes a lot of sense to kind of go to him as an interesting option. There's some good guys in the mid-tier. It's not that bad at all. Miami, we've attacked them throughout the season. If you want to go Josh Gordon, you could, but not one of my favorites. But $6K is a good price for him. And Tyler Boyd, too, with no A.J. Green. I don't know. It depends where you stand. Are you team you want A.J. Green in to help Boyd, or do you just want all the targets for Tyler Boyd? So I think there's a lot. I kind of want him out there. Yeah, I kind of agree, but I don't know. There's a lot of interesting options there in the mid-tier. So, a lot of ways to differentiate yourself here in the $6K range.
I'll tell you what I don't want. I don't want Driscoll throwing the ball. I guess we buried the lead as far as Tyler Boyd.
Wait. Driscoll did great in his first appearance there.
Yeah.
Chucking the ball over the place. Just don't. You can overlook the fact that he was facing the Broncos this week, who are, I believe, the number 1 pass defense in the league. He was rushed every time, and he still put up 37 throws. He put up 29 throws in the second half of a game of the week before. They're going to be passing the ball all over the place. He still ended up with 11.7 points. even though he only threw one touchdown. He had a fumble and an interception. There's a different scenario going up against a worse defense.
So we spent like 8 minutes of the show talking about Sanchez and his hot dogs and his butt fumbles and him being 4K. Driscoll's 4-4. You guys prefer Driscoll at 4-4?
It's just the Chargers not that appealing of a matchup, but I don't know. It makes some sense. Like, I played Tyler Boyd. I think I was tracking. I had a good team in the $222, and man, Tyler Boyd was 0.6% owned, and he got hurt. And I was right stinking there, man. If Tyler Boyd doesn't get hurt and I get the Cody Core touchdown instead, I would have had.
Want to hear about my season-long team again? Is that what you're asking for?
No, definitely not asking for that. But Dean, I know Tyler Boyd has given you havoc all season, and he's made me a ton of money. So I'm going to keep going back to the well on some Tyler Boyd. Despite
you have to be fair. That was the beginning of the year when you were hammering him. You haven't been playing much of late, have you?
No, but man, I hit him last week, and he wasn't bad last week for 0.6% ownership. Man, he was on track to have a really big day.
Scoreboard. Galladay, by the way, you mentioned he was like one toe away from getting there this week too.
I know.
Also, his game matchup versus Patrick Peterson this week in all likelihood. So look for Bruce Ellington to have a huge game at 3.8K.
Yeah.
So Bruce Ellington's going to get like 11 catches for 26 yards.
Yeah. What's that in PPR?
He's fine. They haven't really raised his price. He's still 3.8K. You know, he has no ceiling, but like he's going to probably catch.
Yeah,
like
no ceiling. Imagine if he broke one off for a touchdown. What's his ceiling there? 23?
Well, I mean, sure. Imagine. That's the start of my tweets.
By the way, speaking of cheap receivers, I gotta tribute to Bobby Fye here. Robbie Anderson, 3.6K. We expected Jets to be trailing. I have to mention Robbie Anderson for Bobby.
Well, you might as well give a tribute to Grant and mention Jermaine Kearse too. Both these guys love the Jet receivers.
Yeah, I guess you can go for him, but I'm Team Robbie Anderson instead. We can move the tight end quick. I mean, Kelsey gets the price bump, right, for playing the Ravens, 6.7K. Like, that's just pretty crazy to think. I don't know who you want, Grant, but, like, man, Rob Gronkowski's $4,800. I don't know if you want to pay $4,800 for a right tackle, but, hey, you can play a right tackle for $4,800 if you want. He used to be an absolute stud, but he hasn't been too great lately.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. We also have Ebron at 5,700. Obviously got a huge price bump. But look at the games that Ebron has had without Doyle in the offense here, and it becomes really interesting. Not just looking at production, but just looking at the target totals in all these games. No one's really going to want to pay that much for him, but he still had 15 targets in this last game. I think he might actually be injured right now. But he was going up against Jacksonville, which is one of the better offenses or defenses in the league, against the tight end. Against New England, 15 targets. Against Houston, 10 targets. Against Philly, 11 targets. He's obviously the main go-to guy in the red zone. He currently has 12 touchdowns on the year, even though he's had a few tough matchups throughout the year here, and obviously Doyle back in the offense at certain times. This guy without Doyle in the offense just has an incredible target share on a week-in, week-out basis. Houston right now, 31st in DVOA versus the tight end. Not very good at guarding it. Obviously, Kelsey and Ertz are still in play, but Ebron, like, people are just not going to want to pay this price for him, and it's absolutely a ridiculous idea here. Love Ebron. And then if you want to go off the board, Driscoll targeted Uzoma 13 times, I believe, or he got 13 total targets. I think 8 were from Driscoll. Uzoma, 8 targets this last week against Denver. So Uzoma could be in for a big game at 3,500, even though he didn't pay off his price tag very big in this last matchup with only 8 points. 3,500 isn't going to kill you. And then I've got nothing else for tight end.
One last one.
Talk to himself. Go ahead there, Mangone.
Matt Lacoste. He got 1 target last week, but he was supposed to be the guy for Huerman. It is the Niners, and they're terrible against the pass. So maybe take a shot on him at 2,700 one last time.
He cost too many dollars last week. I don't know if I can go. I bought in. I fired.
Just so you know, you just stole that joke from Crane. He said that on Sunday. So
oh no, really? Is
that a classic Dean?
Classic Dean.
I did not know that.
Stealing from Crane. Classic.
That's a classic dad joke. No, that's no. First of all, I'm sure everybody's made that joke. Like it's just right there. I prefer Abercrombie. You can keep your Lacoste. But nobody's made that terrible joke. That's even worse.
Yeah, please move on. That was terrible.
Yeah, I think it's time to talk about. I think it's time to talk about defense, even though it doesn't matter, right? One, I just want to say is
no, it doesn't. We don't talk about defense.
I
know you're a long-time loyal listener to the podcast. You don't miss a week at all. You always the next day, Tuesday, right in the morning. You leave me a bunch of notes in the Skype chat and tell me, hey, I like this point, I like that point. And I very appreciate that. Thanks for the support of the podcast. We don't really talk about defenses. That's basically, unless you have a quick hit as far as defense.
Yeah, I got one quick hit on it. 2,300 on DraftKings. The Redskins defense. They get to play the Giants. Eli Manning loves to just fall on the ground and take sacks. It's 2,300. Probably will help make your lineup work really well. And they got 15 points the last time they played the G-Men. So there you go.
It's interesting Baltimore is 2-2. I know they're playing against Kansas City, but that's just interesting.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. I think Steelers are the best one going against Oakland. Obviously, I think they're, second in the league in terms of sacks right now. So, yeah. Do we get to the nonsense? Or has this entire thing been nonsense?
Well, I think the Lacoste joke was definitely nonsense. I apologize. I'm going to delete my account when we get off the show. I should not have said any of that. I regret everything.
Yeah, I apologize to Crane, too, for stealing his joke.
Well, no, I didn't know. He should have to delete his account also. But I made 2 terrible Lacoste jokes. By the way, his price went up. He's now 2.7, I believe. And I'll be back, maybe. We shall see if I need a punt. Tell the people what happened there as far as the tweet. We were playing Mad Libs, Grant, before the show. And you were name 3 things, and we just pieced together a tweet, and this is what you're firing out tomorrow, I guess. Yeah,
one was candy corn, one was shake weight, and one was Mr. Potato Head. So the tweet this week is, just got done with a mad, intense sesh on my shake weight. Now I'm going to hammer down 3 pounds of candy corn, chasing it with some expired eggnog, while Mr. Potato Head looks at me the same shameful way my father did after I said Sister Act 2 was my favorite movie.
I think just calling it nog is funny. Just drop the egg. Just call it nog. Expired nog.
Oh, it is under nog. I don't know if I said egg on accident. Who?
The egg's implied.
Egg? Who?
The egg is implied. If you say nog, I think the egg is just implied, right? People just know automatically. Yeah.
I mean, unless they're assuming noggin.
No, I think it's a popular drink around Thanksgiving. For some reason, people think it tastes better in November or in December. It tastes terrible all year round. Let's Mangone, do you have a hot take as far as eggnog? You probably never had it before.
No, I mean, eggnog's terrible, and it's similar to Thanksgiving food. It's not that great. If we liked it, we would eat it all year round.
Shut up, Mangone. Shut your mouth.
Mangone, you're welcome back in the pod anytime. We thank you for joining, especially if you're gonna have these positive takes. Because seriously, Grant, thanks. Show me a Thanksgiving food item that's better than honey baked ham. Show me. I'll wait.
Stuffing, mashed potatoes.
I do. Stuffing's the one I'll eat.
Sweet potato pie.
Ridiculous.
Gravy is better than a honey baked ham. Gravy you drink from a saucer.
That's the podcast. We don't have a question this week. We didn't have one going into the show, and I don't know. Tell us something in the comments. Maybe give us tell us what the question should be next week. If you want to tell us that in the comments section here on RotoGrinders.com. Mango, do you want to have anything for people to remember you on? Remember, you got to end on a high note. So end strong.
Yeah, no. I mean, I can give you the lineup I did, right? The Bobby Fi make a lineup throughout the show.
Make sure to leave 3 off.
Oh,
yeah, come on. Okay. They're DK guidelines. Come on, Mangone.
Okay, so here we go. Is it 3 off or is it 2 off? How many do I have to leave off?
I think it's 2. Just don't give us defense, obviously.
I got it. I have it figured out. This is an easy way to do it. I got Josh Allen at the quarterback. I paired him up with Zay Jones for a little quarterback. Then we ran with your Jeff Wilson Jr., who we discussed. Grant, if you listen to him when he's talking about running backs, he talked about Ezekiel Elliott as a really good tournament play. Then you got Travis Kelce as the tight end because he's kind of too cheap today. I shoved in the flex spot. Don't normally do that, Dean, but it just happened. We got 4 wide receivers on this team. We got Sherfield. He's going to be in there as the cheapie that maybe hits home. This lineup is gross.
You got to fire this in the $4 or something like that. Just get it out there. Get it out to the people.
This might be a milli maker, man. We might go all the way with this team. And then I won't say the defense and I won't say the receivers, but I'll give a hint. It was 2 of the 3 that we talked about. So there you go.
Well, yeah, it was Washington defense. I'm not doing the math, but I'm
what are you doing, Dean? End the pod.
Hypothetically, it was Washington defense. Grant, you have something for the people for the road?
I mean, don't be like me.
That's it. Just end a period in a sentence. Just
in general. I guess not. Also, the Arbinator from Arby's is just a culinary masterpiece. Go get it. Just get your heartburn. Make sure you make it the double amount of roast beef because the normal amount is.
Wait, hold on. I don't mean to cut you off. I apologize. The Arbinator is a real. It's not something like the Onion made up. That's a real sandwich.
Yeah, it's roast beef, horsey sauce, cheese, curly fries, and I'm not entirely sure if barbecue sauce is in there. I get some extra Arby's. By the way, how is Arby's just, we'll call our barbecue sauce Arby's sauce for some reason. It's not like a million people. It's kind of like Mac sauce being just Thousand Island.
Fries are on the sandwich, or it's a side of fries?
No, it's curly fries. By the way, Arby's, one of the few places that actually offers curly fries, and some of the best curly fries. Also, the best fast food mozzarella sticks. Sure, I've already said that before.
Who's the second best fast food mozzarella sticks? They're running unopposed.
No, there's another one. I believe that Jack in the Box has mozzarella sticks. They also have bacon cheddar potato wedges that are far superior.
Mango, do you like your fries crazy or sane?
I mean, I always like a good loaded fries with bacon and cheese. I mean, if I can get it that way, I'm all in.
I don't want that. I'm talking about the never mind. You went off the board. I wasn't talking about the fixins. That's the end of the pod, Boyd. I don't know why we're talking about food now. That's it. I don't know if that's a high note or not. It's a little bit better than my dad joke, which is actually terrible, and I apologize for that. My account was included. Bobby, we will hopefully see you next week. Get your internet situated. Mangone, thanks for stepping in. Mangone's still doing laundry. You're doing his taxes there as an homage to Bobby. That's Grant. That's Mangone. I'm Dean. Good luck for Week 14 NFL DFS. We're out of here. Holla.
See you, kid.